All right. Welcome back, folks, to the FF Face-Off, part of the Face-Off Sports Network, and we are giving you 3 running backs to avoid in fantasy football. My name is Michael Hopp. You can follow me on X at the FF Realist. My partner in crime is Anthony Servino. He can be followed at the Real NFL Guru. Anthony, are you ready to go with these 3 running backs?
Yeah, let's get right into it.
All right. So the first running back on our list is going to be DeVon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. This is probably a little controversial of a pick because of all the hype around him, but that's kind of the deal. ADP of 25.4. I'm going to kick this to Anthony, but personally, I would rather pay the price for Raheem Mostert going later when both guys are going to produce and have hopefully massive seasons like we think. But Anthony, what says you on this front? For me, it's all about cost. What is it for you?
Yeah, well, DeVon Achane was going early second round at some points this offseason. Now he's more towards the late second, early third round. If I can get DeVon Achane early third round, I can digest it. Now, we know the good about DeVon Achane. It's the ultimate ceiling play. If DeVon Achane gets enough touches, if he can stay healthy and on the field and injury-free, he has the ceiling to finish as the overall RB1. The problem is, I don't know if he has the size to stay injury-free. Plus, we know about this Miami Dolphins backfield. They will use multiple backs. We've seen it ever since Mike McDaniel has been there with guys like Mostert, Jeff Wilson. Last year we saw a mix of Mostert and Achane. Now they bring in one of the highly touted rookies coming in, and it's been one preseason game, but he looks the part like he's going to be the future of this backfield once Mostert and the Miami Dolphins part ways, which could be as soon as next year. But when it comes to Achane this season, everybody thinks about the recency, right? The big pop games. When Achane first started getting going, week 3 against Denver last season, 51.3 fantasy points, follows it up with 27, follows it up with 21.5. That was against the New York Giants, and I believe it was like in a half of football. Then he goes down again, and DeVon Achane, we don't see him again until week 11, and from week 11 on, he was an erratic football player. Yes, he had 2 nice games where he was the RB3 and the RB8 on the week. But in every other game from that week 11 to week 18 time span, he was, I don't want to call him a bust, but he was a fantasy player that was giving us fewer than 13.1 PPR points. Again, from that week 11 to 18 stretch, outside of those 2 games where he popped for over 20. So he's a true boomer bust player, and other running backs going around that price point, I feel like they're much safer plays. Guys like Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Etienne and Derrick Henry, especially.
Yep. If he comes out and if he gives you those same sort of numbers this year, he is officially a bust for this year. If he gives you the same numbers as last year. So it's not that we don't think he's going to be good. We do think he's going to be good. We just know there are a lot of people in that backfield, and there is the potential for injury. So we are fading DeVon Achane. Next up on our list is Josh Jacobs of the Green Bay Packers. Now, this past offseason, he signed himself a 4-year, $48 million contract. ADP right now is 37.9. You look at the history of how they've run the running back system. You talk about what Miami has done. There has never been this necessity to go ahead and just hammer one running back. They like to use multiple backs there too. It's something Josh Jacobs owners are not familiar with from his days in Vegas. So, Anthony, is that kind of where you're going with here on Josh Jacobs, or is there more to the story?
When it comes to Josh Jacobs, he's a player that is a full fade for me. Like we talked about Achane. I'm going to have some Achane exposure. I play in volume leagues. I'm not going to have very much Josh Jacobs at all. There are some major red flags for me. Number one, Josh Jacobs. If we look at his best seasons with the Raiders, he's been a top guy in volume. Now, let's go 2 years ago where he pops as the RB3 in points per game, almost 1,700 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, 53 receptions, 400 yards. That year, he dominated volume, 340 rushing attempts, and again, the aforementioned 53 receptions. Last season, now he only played in 13 games. He was still the RB 18 in points per game, so a dramatic regression. But all that being said, he was still the number one running back in opportunity share. He was still 11th in carries. So this was another volume-dependent year out of Josh Jacobs, which has been the story of his career. 4.9 yards per carry in 2022, down to 3.5 last year. Now we fast forward, Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay. So he goes from a situation where he was the guy, he was the every down back, the workhorse. Goes to a Green Bay Packers backfield. And LaFleur, what do we know about the history of LaFleur? He's very similar to Mike McDaniels with running back usage. LaFleur had prime Aaron Jones. And prime Aaron Jones conceded touches to Jamal Williams, A.J. Dillon. Now, this offseason, Green Bay prioritized the running back. Not only did they bring in Jacobs, they re-signed A.J. Dillon, and they draft Marshawn Lloyd, one of the better rookie running backs coming out. Now, I believe Dillon, he's going to be more of a handcuff to Josh Jacobs. Very similar skill sets. Yeah. Marshawn Lloyd, he's a little bit banged up right now, but once he's good to go, he's the best pass catcher in that backfield, and I believe he has a role out the gate, which means fewer opportunities for Josh Jacobs. So if we're believing Josh Jacobs is going to get volume in Green Bay, history says he's not going to get it. And we know, again, Josh Jacobs needs volume to return value in fantasy football. I don't see that happening. So I am full fade on Josh Jacobs because in order for him to return value, he's going to have to score a lot of touchdowns. And they have a lot of guys. A lot of good wide receivers, a couple of good tight ends, and again, a very deep backfield. This is going to be an offense that's going to be very spread out, and I just don't see Josh Jacobs getting the type of touchdown volume or opportunity volume to return any type of fantasy value compared to where he's going in drafts.
Perfect. As we get to our last running back, I will remind everybody, if you are watching this, if you're enjoying this, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You'll be notified every single time we go live. But enough of that. We'll get to our final running back on this list of running backs you should avoid, and it is DeAndre Swift of the now Chicago Bears. This is his third team he's played for. Quietly last year, did have a 1,000-yard season barely with the Philadelphia Eagles, 1,049 yards to be exact. ADP is currently 73. I know there's an understanding here between the two other backs we talked about. You're not spending a high priority pick to get DeAndre Swift, but still, that being said, there is still value where he's going. And I don't trust DeAndre Swift to stay healthy. And I also think that this is going to be an offense that's going to look to throw more than it's going to run. I think confidence is gaining with Caleb Williams in this preseason. We're seeing some of the throws he's making. So DeAndre Swift is a big fade for me. Anthony, what says you when it comes to DeAndre Swift now in Chicago?
Now, there is some good from DeAndre Swift. He's been in the league 4 years. Last year was his worst year in fantasy points per game. RB24 in that category, but he's never finished outside of the top 24 running backs in points per game. However, he's been getting worse year after year since 2021. He was the RB8. He was in that category, 2022, the 15, last year, the 24. In Philly last season, career high 1,049 rushing yards, career high 229 rushing attempts, 39 receptions, 214 yards, 6 touchdowns. Those 6 touchdowns was a career low. Now, we know they had an offense loaded with weapons, especially Jalen Hurts, who vultured quite a few touchdowns from DeAndre Swift. But still, now we bring DeAndre Swift to Chicago, a significant downgrade in offensive line. They improved the offensive line of Chicago, still a significant downgrade from a top 3 to 5 unit in which Swift was running behind in Philly. They also revamped that offense when it comes to pass catchers. Not only did they have and resign DJ Moore, they draft Rome Odunze, they bring in Keenan Allen, they have Cole Kmet, they bring in Everett and a new OC and Shane Waldron. I think this is an offense that's going to throw the football with Caleb Williams. If you've been watching Caleb Williams in the preseason, he looks the part. Now, if you remember the first preseason game, you remember that highlight throw where Caleb Williams had that no-look pass to Swift, and he takes it.
Yep.
Those plays are going to happen, but we can't count on those plays. I think we're going to see Caleb Williams try to push the ball downfield a little bit more. And I don't know how many check down opportunities are going to be going DeAndre Swift's way. We also know that unless there's any type of training camp cuts towards the end or preseason cuts, this is a backfield that has Roschon Johnson. I'm not the biggest Roschon Johnson guy, but he's still a body and he's a good pass catcher, which could mean he's cutting into some targets for DeAndre Swift. They also have Khalil Herbert, who could be the best runner in this backfield in terms of between the tackles runner. And I think Khalil Herbert is going to have a role. So I don't know if DeAndre Swift is going to see the type of volume he had in Philly last year. So at his cost right now, DeAndre Swift going as pick 73, other running backs going around DeAndre Swift, Zamir White, Ram Stevenson, Mostert, Najee Harris. I'd rather have every one of those guys over DeAndre Swift.
1,000%. That's going to do it for us today, folks. Again, those are our 3 running backs to avoid. Please feel free to like and subscribe. Until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We'll catch you on the flip side. Cheers.